Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business. Looking forward to talking to Chris Papin. You got an interesting background, licensed attorney, certified public accountant, and insurance producer. Looking forward to diving into all of that. Let's start by, thanks for being on the show. I love math. I loved math in college. For one semester, I thought I wanted to be an actuarial science major because I loved math. I took an accounting class. I absolutely hated it. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why I didn't understand it because I loved math. And so it's so impressive. And my LSATs, I thought I wanted to be an attorney, and I actually canceled my scores and walked out of my LSATs. So I'm so impressed, and I know how difficult it is to be a CPA and an attorney. So kudos to that. I'm a business coach. Let's talk about, people grow up knowing I need to have an accountant and an attorney. They don't necessarily know they need to have a business coach, but everybody knows they need to have an attorney and an accountant, and you can be both. How do you differentiate yourself? That's one way that we talked about, but how do you as a business person differentiate yourself in today's world?
I think there's a couple of different ways to look at this, and the business coach element lays over the top. So, let's play with kind of the attorney designation for a minute, but it's attorney and counselor at law, and that counselor piece is important. To our clients, we typically package that and we call it advisory services, kind of a buzzword in the tax and accounting industry, but the easy way to say this is if you're driving a vehicle, you look out the windshield, you're forward looking.
Yeah.
You don't drive through your rear view mirror. So when a client calls and says, will you file my tax return? We're looking through the rear view mirror. And they mean so much more. But kind of as you're teasing about, if you're not in the industry and you're not in those spaces, you don't really know what to ask for. So our big differentiator is we try to translate what we know clients want, or what we think they want in some instances, in that forward-looking arena, so that they can kind of be the business owner they want to be and not have to worry about all this debits and credits and technical junk that is my specialty.
Yeah. All right. Good. So let's talk about an accountant, right? Every business needs an accountant. I think, some people may do their accounting on their own. For the sake of discussion, let's talk about people who don't want to do it on their own, and people who have done it on their own and maybe are sick of doing it on their own. I've always had an accountant. I actually remember being in accounting thinking, why I hate this class and I don't care about this class anymore because I'm always going to have an accountant. That was my thinking in class. And then, and I do, I have a bookkeeper, I have an accountant. So why should somebody use an accountant?
So I think it starts with a lot of the language of business. And I would argue the majority of business is driven by the numbers.
Yeah.
And somebody has to translate those numbers if you don't want to, or maybe you don't have the same aptitude that someone like I might.
Yeah.
There's tons of tax and accounting professionals who will tell you, I don't need to talk to the client. I just need to see the financial statements and I can tell you what they need.
Yeah.
And with any profession, you have things like that. But I think for a lot of business owners in particular, they're experts in their field, or they're really good at sales, or there's a piece of their business that's their passion project. And kind of your experience, I don't care about the debits and credits.
Right.
Let somebody else worry about it. But getting that into a format, and again, translating those numbers into a user-friendly format for the business owner is key.
Yeah.
Because most of my clients pay attention to bank accounts. They kind of sort of look at a profit and loss. They're familiar with it. They understand what it is, but there's a gap between what's in your bank account and what shows up as profit.
Yeah.
And somebody needs to translate that to kind of develop those more sophisticated goals that I think most business owners are seeking.
let's talk about that when it comes to, I'd love to talk about a little bit about companies who have or are in need of the inside numbers guy, the controller or person, the controller, the CFO, whether it's those two roles, an accountant, somebody to help you forecast. I think that's sometimes a missed piece of business, right? Like you're saying, somebody's got to be in charge of the numbers, not only today's numbers, but trends of numbers and forecasting numbers. I know a lot of times, sometimes when I'm going into businesses, the larger companies typically do this that I work with, but the smaller or the mid-sized companies aren't forecasting to the level that they really need to be. And, they have, whether they started their business 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, sometimes they're running on the adrenaline of that startup mode. And so, and not forecasting to the extent they need to. Talk a little bit about the importance of that.
We see the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And there's kind of a maturity level. And I tease folks, the people we have the most impact with are 16-year-olds in business.
Yeah.
Their business is like a 16-year-old. They can drive, they can get around, they're pretty sure they know what they do, but they're going to make some dumb decisions in there. So we've got to coach them up. And you are exactly right in the sense of the entrepreneur, the founder, oftentimes has a forecast in their head. But when they step out of that financial role because the demands grow, there's nobody else there to do it.
Yeah.
And you do have to, I'm going to make it super simple. Like, you need a target, you need a budget. What should sales be? Because if your team doesn't understand that, how do they know how to align their day?
Right.
And even though that's rudimentary, obviously that builds, but I like the simple stuff. Like, hey, focus on revenue. Everything else is a function of that, because you don't have expenses if you don't have revenue.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, a more mature, more sophisticated audience, they're going to look through a different lens. They may be worried about debt service. They may be worried about acquisitions, or maybe there's kind of a tinkering with refinancing. All of those have a different flavor to them. But what I think is key is somebody has to understand it. Somebody's got to be able to translate it. And then in these more mature companies, somebody needs to take charge internally to own it.
Yeah.
It can be the business owner, it can be a CFO or controller. But if you don't have that, maybe you need to hire a temp person. Because I talk to lots and lots and lots of clients that say, I thought my accountant was doing that. We review the engagement letter. I'm like, I don't understand why you thought they were doing that at all.
Yeah.
But common misconceptions.
What are some,
you see it like as you coach folks.
Yeah.
When you go through this process, you'll ask a question, they'll give you a response, and you're like, it's not at all what I asked, but that's great information to have, so we can help get you there, right?
What are some other things, whether it's questions you think people should be asking themselves about their business, and or things that you're seeing that people are behind real time in, that they really need to be asking themselves questions or thinking about, and be ahead of real time when it comes to certain things in their business? How would you extract the top 3 things?
I usually start with the end in mind. And for most, that's way too far down the road for us to target with precision.
Well, it depends. That's one of my favorite Coveyisms, not to interrupt you, but I love that statement. And I think one of the things, and I agree with you, there's sometimes a law of proximity that can be too far apart for someone. But I think if you reverse engineer whatever that end is, let's say it's 10 years, 20 years, and you keep on, when I'm working with clients, it's okay, your end is 30 years from now. Reverse engineer that to 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, 12 months, yada, yada, yada. Keep on reverse engineering it so you understand what you need to do just the next 30 days or the next week.
Yeah, I say the same thing.
Yeah.
And the way I try to give people a little bit of comfort around it is a golf analogy. We're all aiming at the pin. I get that. Sometimes you hit it in the water. Sometimes you hit it in the sand. Sometimes it's in the short grass. If you get up today and you aim at the pin, you're successful.
Yeah.
That's what we're focused on. And that's what that reverse engineering exercise is all about.
Yeah.
I think the second piece for people, and you've got this in your book. I'm going to butcher the quote, but we got to do the work. Nobody's going to do it for you. Like the quote I think you've got is something around the pain of hard work is always less than the regret.
Yeah.
So I look through lenses like that and say, if you're not going to do it, who is? Do you have somebody on the team who is authorized and capable to execute? And if you don't have those two things, we kind of need to go back to step one and figure out what is it that you're doing today to get to that goal.
Yeah.
And then the third is
real
probably
quickly,
yeah.
And I love this quote by Nito Cubane. The price of discipline is always less than the price of regret, the pain of regret.
Bingo. Yeah, thank you.
I got your back. All right. What's number 3?
So the third piece is, I think, not getting lost in the weeds.
Yeah.
You wake up and something happens at 8:30 in the morning. You take the phone call, and now you're a firefighter all day long.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, it's Thursday, and you're still working on task number 1 for Monday.
Yeah.
And inside of that, there is a mental place you got to go to execute or delegate. And I think sometimes for business owners, they get so stuck in, I've got to prop up everybody else, or I've got to deal with the thing that's on my desk. And we don't triage the decision-making process.
Yeah.
They deal with what is loud and squeaky, not what is most important that executes to the next day.
Yeah.
Or to the next goal, or to the next 30 years.
And I think something as you're talking about that, which I think is so important, and I see this as something lacking in too many people, which is prioritizing time to prepare, time to be still, time to reflect, time to put the list together. It seems like everybody's running so fast that they're, if you're not busy, it means you're not doing anything. And there is a space that you need to create for yourself to think about and to plan. When I'm talking to clients, we figure out what the rhythm of their day is, and typically sometimes it's at the end of somebody's day, to really time block and just give yourself time to review the day, white space to review the day, to be still and ponder and think about the day, so you can kind of reprocess it and see some of the nuances you need to do and plan for tomorrow, right? Whether it's 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 10 minutes, it doesn't have to be long, but preparation. I somehow got lost along the way as we've all been running so fast. I know I've been having to, over the years, retrain myself as well, that, white space in a calendar is, I teach a time management, I do a time management training. And one of the things I talk about is, it's not about time management for the sake of being overly rigid, because one of the things you need to time manage is white space in your calendar, right? Because things move around, nothing is perfect, time to recalibrate, things of that nature. So to your point, I echo a lot of the things that you're talking about, and just want to emphasize the importance of taking time and having honored space to just do a lot of what you just shared.
And to amplify that,
yeah,
think of your favorite sports, whoever, baseball, football, soccer. They watch film. And I love using Tom Brady as the analogy here, just because he's relevant in a lot of ways, but he watched more film than most.
Yeah.
That's what the white space is.
Yeah.
They reflected, they recovered, they did the things they needed to do to be successful when they needed to flip the switch. We should too, as business owners.
Yeah. And when you look at that about Tom, it's, you can dive in and you can say, well, it's Tom Brady, blah, blah, blah. But we could probably reverse engineer and quantify what made him 0.001%, better, if not more than most. So I think it's great. All right, let's do a quick speed round, Chris. Book that's had a big impact on you.
Probably the biggest that works with my clients is the E-Myth, the entrepreneurial myth.
I love that book. That book is such a great book, and I don't feel like enough people have read that book. It's a really, really powerful, special book. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
Best piece of wisdom, it comes from my grandfather. And I'm not going to be able to get his quote right, but it was something about there's a time and place, there's a reason, there's a season.
Yeah.
You may want it on a Tuesday and it may never show up, or it may show up on a Friday. And guess what? You're not in control.
Yeah. It's a kind of like universal law, right? Everything happens at the exact time, in the exact moment it's supposed to. You got to surrender and allow it to flow to you. I like that. All right, finish this sentence. One thing everybody needs to do to get a better understanding of their numbers is
sit down and read them.
Yeah.
Too many people say they read them or quickly look at financial statements and kind of gloss over it. I have found when I sit and say, here's what I see, people will tell me, I read that. I didn't know that's what it meant.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a coach that needs to sit with them in that too.
Yeah. Well said. Chris, this was great. I appreciate you taking time to share your thoughts and your wisdom. Think community. I always like to extract one thing, which is start with the end in mind. Reverse engineer that to whatever proximity you need to make an impact on a day-to-day basis to grow and move forward, not only in your business, but your life. It doesn't matter what it is. Reverse engineer it to the small. Do this small every single day. It compounds really big over time. Chris, tell people where they can connect with you.
Yeah, the best place is on LinkedIn. If you look for my name, Chris Papin, Papin, we push out a bunch of good content, talk about where I am. Sometimes we're speaking at different events. Sometimes I'm just hanging out. Certainly at my firm websites, Papin CPA or papinlaw.com.
Right. Chris, thanks so much for taking time to be on the show. Think community, thank you so much. Appreciate you always. You can reach me at jondwoskin.com if you want to talk about any business coaching. Chris, thanks so much.
I appreciate you very much. Thank you.